Our favorite hotel points program is taking a massive potential hit very soon. Today, we are going to talk about the Hyatt points mega devaluation. My name is Sean, and I'm here with my co-host.
Hi everyone, I'm Sherwin, the other half of the Credit Card BS podcast, and today's topic is Hyatt's massive devaluation. These changes are taking effect in May of 2026. The exact date has not yet been announced, but Hyatt has already released some details on these changes. So the first big change is to their award chart. Now, fortunately, there are no new categories being introduced, so it's still going to be Cat 1 through 8. We're not going to see a Cat 9 or a 10, fingers crossed. But the points cost range within each category is changing. Currently, there are kind of like three prices for a given hotel in a category for points: off-peak, standard, or peak. Now there are going to be 5 prices that this change will have. So it will be lowest, low, moderate, upper, and top. Interestingly, there's no clear information on the distribution of nights among these 5 price points. There's no guarantee, for example, that a percentage of nights will be in the lower or moderate categories. So theoretically, a property could be nearly all upper or top. We don't know for sure yet until we actually see them roll this out. Now, to give you some perspective on how much more things will cost, this is not merely them adding more increments within the lower and upper range of a hotel chain. They're actually increasing the upper range significantly. So the lowest number is kind of basically our current off-peak price, and the low number, the second out of the fifth one, is sort of the old standard number. So the moderate, upper, and the top are all more expensive. So for example, category 4 is currently 12,000, 15,000, or 18,000, but it's going to change from 12,000 or change to 12,000, 15,000, 20,000, 22.5 thousand, and 25,000. So pretty big jump from an upper being 18,000 to 25,000. And then Cat 8 ranges is really significant. You know, if you look at it, it goes anywhere from 35,000 to 75,000, whereas the current max is 45,000. Sean, what's your reaction to these changes?
It's going to be very, very interesting because this is obviously like a massive increase in range and kind of goes against what we'd imagine Hyatt normally doing, and where how Hyatts have always been, several years back, didn't even have peak and off-peak pricing. It was just whatever the category is, that's what it costs. Then they added off-peak and peak pricing, so there was a range, but it was a fairly tight range. Even at Cat 8, it went from 35,000 points to 45,000 points, a 10,000 point swing at the very most for the very top category. Nothing crazy. Now, this is getting very, very close to dynamic level pricing, where the fact that we can go from 35,000 to 75,000 points, that's it's a huge, huge range, 40,000 point range. There's a lot of questions in my mind here, where obviously, how is this going to be in practice implemented? Is Hyatt going to be generous and make it so that it's really only utilized very, very sparingly at the top? Is it going to be more of an equal bell curve? How are we going to see this? Now, in my mind, I'm predicting it. At first, I would imagine they're going to try to keep it somewhat constrained so that it kind of limits the reaction of how bad people react to it. But one thing I think that's really interesting about this is going to give Hyatt plenty of opportunity for silent overnight devals, where before Hyatt has historically always given us notice on category changes. And of course, for properties, it could change between standard and peak and off-peak, but it was like pretty rare if it had ever happened. Now I would imagine that Hyatt will have plenty of opportunities to just go, well, we want to raise the points price at this property. Well, we're not technically raising the category. It just happens to be that this whole month that maybe was on the low pricing is now at the, upper pricing. So I would imagine this is going to be something that you'll want to watch out for as it rolls out. So even if it initially rolls out and it's not too bad, which may actually happen, it could still get significantly worse later down the line, even potentially overnight without any notice from Hyatt, whereas historically, usually you've had a much bigger notice on large changes like this, especially in terms of category swings. Now, Sherwin, I know you and I were talking about earlier, we have some other questions about how the pricing might change or what other behavioral decisions Hyatt might make about how this is rolled out. So do you want to discuss some of those?
Yeah, I do want to add that Hyatt Corporate did come out and say that they're going to try to not make drastic pricing changes this year and then gradually adjust things the next year or two. So I mean, I do fear that this will eventually become essentially dynamic pricing. We saw Marriott do something very similar where they used to have an award chart, then they changed it to like off peak and peak, and then they changed it to just the lowest and highest number within a range, and a property can be any number. And eventually they got rid of the award chart altogether. So like this sort of is in line with those steps if they were to eventually become dynamically priced entirely. The other thing is that the all-inclusive and Miraval charts are also changed to extremely high pricing, potentially at the top. So make sure you go look at that if you're planning on booking it. I guess one possibly good thing is that the CAT 1 through 4 and CAT 1 through 7 certificates will still work the same, even on the top pricing. Those certs might potentially be worth more points in a sense. But even that's a bit of a stretch, right? And I would say if you can book speculatively, you should do so to lock in current pricing because these changes don't take effect until May. And Hyatt generally is pretty good with close-in cancellations, usually have anywhere from 24 to 72 hours before your booking to cancel. I mean, some properties are more aggressive, could be like 7, 14, or 21 days or a month. So make sure you look at those cancellation policies, but it can be worth booking speculatively now. Another thought I had is whether, and this might be wishful thinking to be honest, Sean, but whether some hotels will decrease in category as a result of this. So for example, a hotel that typically does not have an extremely high rate, but during peak times costs dramatically more, maybe they currently need to be in a higher category to account for those nights since they don't have flexibility to go beyond the 3 points ranges that they're allowed. But now that the range of points for a category is wider, there may be less need of to be in a higher category all the time, right? So I think a lot of like Bay Area hotels fall into this pattern. Hotels in college towns where normally it's not expensive, but when there's like a big football game, it might be really expensive. Or hotels in cities with significant holiday celebrations, think like New York during like New Year's Eve, for example. What do you think, Sean? Is this wishful thinking? Do you think it's possible we'll see hotel category decreases?
This could happen. I don't know if it will happen to the extent we want. Like, I could totally imagine. And then maybe some of our points, like our certificates, become more valuable because the categories changed. But Hyatt can go, well, even though the categories change, we can make the points cost way more. So maybe these certificates become more valuable. But it definitely might be some wishful thinking. And the fact that they essentially have like 5 pricing tiers, and that it seems like it would be odd if they all seem to gear on the lower end of these tiers. Like, it seems like it would probably be somewhat of a bell curve, like in the middle. This indicates to me that across the board, things will probably just still go up in price, which isn't great. Now, of course, if the categories decrease to account for that, that would be great. But I don't know if this is going to happen. What I also think is, even though we may, Hyatt Corporate has said they're going to try to roll this out slower, or at least not do dramatic changes at first, I think we can agree there's probably going to be certain hotels in certain markets that are just going to immediately hit the top or very much close to it. And so like Alila Ventana, maybe Grand Hyatt Kauai, Andaz Maui, markets where we have seen really quick category rises in these hotels, where like Andaz Maui has been like a Cat 8 since like Cat 8 became a thing. Grand Hyatt Kauai just became Cat 8. Ventana has been Cat 8 since Cat 8's been a thing. And it's
Ventana's
like,
always been at that 45,000 price.
Yes.
Even though
it's always at
Cat
peak.
8. Yeah.
And it's still like difficult to book, even at that price point. So like, I'm not going to be surprised in the slightest if we just see Ventana go to 75K every night. Like, that would actually just be like, okay, yeah, that seems expected given the behavior historically of that hotel. So this is unfortunate of what's likely going to happen. Yeah, I don't know. I think, do we think that they're going to have full-on dynamic pricing at some point? Me personally, I wouldn't be surprised by it, but I'll also say like we're pretty damn close to it with these category changes, or like with this range. Like dynamic pricing, like even at Bonvoy hotels, isn't technically fully dynamic. Like, they still have ranges in the back end of that they're setting. They're just not really transparent to us. These are pretty large ranges of what the hotel's going to cost. So I don't think with this change, they really need dynamic pricing, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, let's put this into perspective, right? Cat 8 ranges from 35,000 to 5,000. That's a 40,000 point band. And if we're looking at Hyatt points versus Marriott points, we could say is sort of like a 1 to 3 ratio, you're looking at like an equivalent of a 120,000 Marriott point range for a Cat 8, right? And I think that's pretty striking. I don't even know if there are many Marriott properties that range 120,000 points from the lowest to the highest. Do you know, Sean? That's essentially what this is.
Yeah, I don't know any on the top of my. I mean, maybe there's probably certain markets where it happens, maybe, but that's a good point though. Like this is essentially just dynamic pricing without calling it dynamic pricing.
Yeah.
Like they can still say we have categories or whatever, and I guess the certificates do work on a category basis, but this is essentially just dynamic pricing. It's already been essentially confirmed by Hyatt. They're just avoiding the terminology of it.
Yeah. So a couple additional changes they're adding that's worth talking about. So there's going to be annual category shifts this time in May 2026. But interestingly, they already had 7 properties change category effective immediately without notice. So, a small number of properties, but it's still interesting they decided to do that and not wait until May. Also, they are adding this new early award night availability where if you're an explorist or higher, so explorist or globalist, or you have the World of Hyatt credit card, you'll be able to view and book award nights in advance of all other members. What do you think of this, Sean? Do you think it's significant, valuable, good idea?
I mean, I think it's like super situational, and it also makes me wonder, like, okay, who's booking these awards that isn't an explorist, globalist, or credit card holder? So, like, the discoverists from the credit card stuff, like, there's not that many other members, guys. Like, these are the people that are booking all the awards. So it doesn't really seem that it would do that much. Like, maybe if it was just explorists and globalists and not credit card holders, okay, maybe, but even then it would still be like, all the globals are probably booking these awards up front anyways. Maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like it's that big of a change.
Without a credit card? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could be useful for really hard to get properties like some of the ones in Japan, Ventana, for example, right? But I do anticipate the Japan prices to shoot up pretty quickly after these changes roll out because right now there's a sort of significant gap between how quickly those cash prices have gone versus the points prices. So we'll see. And then finally, Sean, how does this change your strategy going forward? Are you going to put a less emphasis on accruing Hyatt points or status? Or are you still 100% Hyatt all in all the way? What do you think?
I would say that as far as status goes, it doesn't affect it as much purely because the status treatment is still pretty good at Hyatt's overall, especially within the US. But as far as the points earning goes, it definitely does make me not care about earning Hyatt points in the same way that I used to. We haven't seen these changes yet, so obviously this could change, and maybe Hyatt's actually surprisingly generous with how it works. But given that they have this pretty large range of very, very expensive redemptions they can now just do however they feel like, to me at least, the appeal of Hyatt points is going to be vastly, vastly decreased. And so I don't find myself being someone who's going to care about earning them as much, at least this is how I'm expecting it. Will I still want to maintain globalist? Yes, mainly because of how good the treatment is in the US, and especially some of my stays, especially at like some of the not points farmy mega inflated hotels have started to increase. So like I'm not someone who's going to be paying cash for Andaz Maui anytime soon. Okay, if I need to stay there, I'm going to be using points, obviously. But there's like a lot of resorts and hotels that aren't as overinflated in terms of the cash and points price, where you can actually get like a decent cash rate at them. And then if you book through something like Amex FHR and then you're a globalist, you're actually getting really good value, like literally better value than what you would have gotten from using points. So as some of those stays have started to make up more of like my actual hotel stays, I think then I would want to maintain the status. But as far as the points earning aspect goes, especially given that Hyatt points are so hard to earn relative to other currencies, I think it's significantly decreased. How about for you, Sherwin?
Yeah, I think basically I accrued a bunch of Chase and Hyatt points through inks that I'm still sitting on, and I'm not under 524, and I don't think I'm really gonna try to aim to get under 524 anymore. Like I still recommend that people starting out like go through all the Chase cards, get all the Hyatt points, etc. But then like once you're over 524, I think the need to get under 524 again is much lower. But that being said, I still recommend going through Chase before you go over 524. because there's no reason to leave cards on the table.
Yeah, completely agree.
Cool. So, what are your thoughts on Hyatt's massive devaluation? Let us know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and subscribe. It greatly helps support the channel. And also check out our channel memberships. Sean, why don't you talk more about that, as well as our Discord?
Yes, if you want to get access to exclusive content, deals, and tips that we can't share publicly because it would just ruin the deal if we did, check out our memberships down below. Click the join button, and you'll be able to watch like exclusive member-only videos. And if you want to connect with an elite group of credit card enthusiasts and award travelers entirely for free, check out the traveling Discord group at the link in the description. You will learn a ton, I promise you. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.